that are the faces of the thylakoids that are interior to the stack. These are called granule. Lamellae. These membranes that are between the grana, all of this in here, these are called intergrana. All of the intergrana are stromal lamellae, just two names for the same area. Only the top and bottom membrane of the granule stack is stromal lamellae. All the interior ones are granule lamellae. And if you look at one stroma, one stromal lamellae, in one particular grana, large. Granule lamellae, stromal lamellae, and stromal lamellae. And the same is true for chloroplasts as is true for mitochondria. There are ribosomes for protein synthesis that occur in the stroma, and these are 70S ribosomes. There is DNA that directs certain processes of the chloroplast, and it is circular DNA. Unlike mitochondria, chloroplasts tend to be fairly large, so if I were to draw a mitochondrion hovering near a chloroplast, sizes are quite a bit different. Mitochondria are about 1 to 10, 7 to 10 micrometers in size. Chloroplasts tend to be about 10 times that big, as big as 100 micrometers. Now, I'm not going to draw chlorophyll on the board. It's a complex molecule, but I'm showing you my notes as well as show you something about the molecule. Let me do a little bit, because I like to reminisce about my childhood. Unfortunately, with every reminiscence, I have to confess and remember that I grew up in Fresno. By the way, this is an entirely true story in every detail. I lived at the intersection of Harrison and Home. So when people said, I'm going home, I'm going, oh, you're going to come over to my house. And this intersection had a nightlight at each corner. I lived here. This is my house. Across the street were the Fasano twins. their house. David Harris, who married Joan Baez back in the Vietnam days, lived across the street. And Happy Harry, who we were not allowed to stay with, an older gentleman, lived across the street. And of course, we had phone lines that crossed the street. And David Harris owned an Airedale that bit me. So he had him on a long chain. And the Fasano twins, their grandmother moved in with them, and they built a little granny, a little add-on to the house. Now, a few years ago, I went back because people don't believe this story, and I took pictures of each of the houses on the corner, thinking that I would waste time in lecture to show you a little slideshow of all of this. But indeed, I don't have time to do that, and everybody, of course, yes?
Well, was the city concerned that the granny was built in the roadway?
It's not perfect, it's just true. Jog here. Down here was Ferris, and then Adeline. Tom Seaver pitched for the Mets. Was my buddy. He lived over here. During those days, television was relatively new. This was mid to late 40s. And everybody had a TV antenna. TV antennas were all slightly different from one another. Some of them were complex, some of them were not as complex, but basically branched off the houses. And you could think of them, if you would, as R groups that came off the roofs. The Fasano twins' grandmother actually was a shortwave radio operator, and she had a really extensive antenna that came off the roof that had a much bigger footprint, and that was used for shortwave radio. And because we used to play football in the street, we would steal roadblocks, wooden roadblocks, and wall off the street. And so they always called the cops, and they put a policeman would show up and stand in the intersection and drive us away. Now here's a little bit of a lie. He wore a magnesium badge. And he kept an eye on everybody. So if you take a look at this molecule of chlorophyll, and you start in the upper left-hand corner, and these quadrants are actually numbered. Each one of these nitrogen-containing houses